right. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Good to see everybody this morning. Happy Friday. Glad you guys were able to join me this morning. We are still in the book of Galatians. Hey, just wanted you to know that sometimes this OBS software, sometimes it might glitch out. It's happened sometimes, but it only does that for a few seconds. So that if you're watching this and all of a sudden like that, don't worry about it, because what it does is it stops and then it starts up again. So I don't know why that's some weird glitch. It's probably my poor little laptop that I use. That's not the best, but it's working. So, okay. So it's good to see everybody this morning. We are in chapter 4 of Galatians, and we're going to start in verse 21. We're going to try to get through 10 verses today. Yes, I said it, 10 verses. And we'll see how well we do. But let's just get started. I'm going to pray for us this morning, and wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, let me pray for you. And pray for myself. Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for the week. Thank you for sustaining us this whole week. All of us have different circumstances. We all go through different things all week long. And your hand is on us all week long. Sometimes we don't recognize it. And sometimes we don't embrace it. But that doesn't mean you're not there. You are there. And you're more intimately involved in us than we could ever realize. So thank you for this morning. Thank you for your word this morning. God, would you use it? Would you empower us this morning through truth? Would you heal us this morning as we read your living and powerful word? And Holy Spirit, give us the understanding that we need for us to move forward, for us to fully embrace our relationship with you. And thank you that it is a relationship, Jesus. It's like a son and a daughter and a father, a loving father who is willing to go to the nth degree to help us to connect with you and to love you. We love you, Jesus. In the authority of your name we pray. Amen. All right, cool. So we are in chapter 4, and I'm just going to start reading in verse 21 this morning. And we're going to read to verse 31. All right, you ready? So here we go. Tell me, you who want to live under the law, do you know what the law actually says? You know, Paul is saying, look, okay, fine. You want to go back? You want to drift back to being in slavery to God? Go for it. But you need to understand, do you know what that actually says? Do you know what that actually means? Do you know what that actually looks like? So now he's going to give this example. All right? He's going to start in 22. The scriptures say that Abraham had 2 sons. One from his slave wife and one from his freeborn wife. The son of the slave wife was born in a human attempt to bring about the fulfillment of God's promise. But the son of the freeborn wife was born as God's own fulfillment of his promises. These 2 women serve as an illustration of God's 2 covenants or promises. The first woman, Hagar, represents Mount Sinai, where people received the law that enslaved them. And now Jerusalem is just like Mount Sinai in Arabia, because she and her children live in slavery to the law. But the other woman, Sarah, represents the heavenly Jerusalem. She is the free woman, and she is our mother. Verse 27, as Isaiah said, rejoice, O childless woman, you who have never given birth. Break into a joyful shout, you who have never been in labor. For the desolate woman now has more children than the woman who lives with her husband. And you, dear brothers and sisters, are children of the promise, just like Isaiah. Hi, Amy. Good morning. But you are now being persecuted by those who want to keep the law, just as Ishmael. The child born by human effort persecuted Isaac, and the child born by the power of the Spirit. But what do the scriptures say about that? Get rid of the slave and her son, for the son of the slave woman will not share the inheritance with the free woman's son. So, dear brothers and sisters, we are not children of the slave woman. We are children of the free woman. Okay, so now this can sound really, really kind of confusing as you try to figure out what in the heck are they talking about. So, in verse 21, Paul decides to use the law to interpret the law. All right, so he's going to use the law to interpret the law. At this point, his patience is probably running thin as he's writing this letter because he's just so frustrated with these guys. And someone who's an expert in the law, like Paul, right? He knows full well that living under the law does what it does to somebody's relationship with God. It actually enslaves them. He knows that, right? So I want to actually read that in some other translations. Verse 21. Let me call this up here real quick. I don't know what translation you're using, but I want to read verse 21 in some other translations here. So let me call up my trusty dusty. Very dusty. I've had it for a while. But it's a program, and what it does is it allows me to look at a whole bunch of different versions of the Bible. It's got a bunch of commentaries on it, so that I don't have to have a million books. I can just do this, which is nice. Okay, so we're looking at Galatians chapter 4 and verse 21. All right, so let me see how the New American Standard, how do they say this first? Let's see here. Let's take a look. Galatians 4:21. It says, "Tell me, you who want to be under the law, do you not listen to the law?" All right, so he's saying, look, you want to be under the law. It's like, have you read the law? Do you know what that really says? What's wrong with you? The English version. Let's see what this does. Look at how they do that. Let's see. Galatians 4:21 says this. "Let me ask those of you who want to be subject to the law. Do you not hear what the law says?" Right? Let's see how the Message puts it. Sometimes the Message puts it in some. "Tell me now, you who have become so enamored with the law, have you paid close attention to the law?" All right, so this is what Paul's saying. Basically, he's saying, look, are you even paying attention to what the law says? Why would you want to do that? Hi, Warren. Good morning. That's just crazy, right, that you want to do that, okay? So then in verses 22 through 23, he begins with the true story of Abraham's sons, right? And the Jewish people were always all been up about pedigree, right? About their ancestral pedigree, right? Like they were like born into this, and so they were always talking about being sons of Abraham, right? And so ancestral pedigree was everything with them, right? Everything, all right? In fact, let's go to John chapter 8. We're going to go to John chapter 8 and look at this for a second, all right? John chapter 8. Just talking about how they were so enamored with their pedigree, and yet they fully weren't even honest about their pedigree. We're going to go to John chapter 8, starting in verse 31. All right, listen to this. We're in John chapter 8, starting in verse 31. Jesus said to the people who believe in him, "You are truly my disciples if you keep obeying my teachings, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." That's a whole other ballgame to talk about, that verse. But then listen to their reply. This is crazy. "But we are descendants of Abraham," they said, "and we have never been slaves to anyone on earth. What do you mean, set free?" All right, okay, so here's the first thing. Okay, so can you think about anything that is wrong with what they just said? When they said, "We've never been a slave to anyone." Okay, that is a flat out lie, right? They were in slavery to the Babylonians numerous times, right? And even now, they're actually in slavery under Roman rule, all right? So I have a problem with what they just said, right? And because the reality is no, you have been enslaved. And in fact, they don't know how enslaved they are of being under the law. They're not even recognizing that, all right? So they were kind of like, what? Say what? So let's just talk about this whole thing of spiritual pedigree. I wonder, have you ever been in a church where they uplift spiritual pedigree? Okay, so that sounds kind of highfalutin, but this is what this means. Like have you ever been in a church that there's people in there and they've been in that church for 30 and 40 years, and now all of a sudden they're uplifting their fact that they have held membership at this church for so many years. Maybe their mom and dad have been in that church. Maybe their grandfather has been in that church. And so they start to uplift their spiritual pedigree, right? And so they start to view themselves as this hierarchy in the church because they've been in the church for so long, right? That's a spiritual pedigree. Okay, and so the Jewish people were thinking, well, you know what? We have a Jewish pedigree, man. All you got to do, look at our history. All right, so I am born with a spiritual pedigree. All right, can I just say that God doesn't give a rip about a spiritual pedigree? Not at all. That doesn't matter to him. He looks at your heart. He always looks at your heart. He always will look at your heart. That's what's important to him. Okay, so we're going to look at this account about Abraham and Sarah, and we're going to look at how they subverted God's promise. All right, because in this passage here, Paul's talking about the slave woman and the free woman. All right, so we're going to look at Genesis chapter 16. All right, so go way back to the book of Genesis. Way back to Genesis chapter 16. All right, so this is all about the birth of Ishmael. Okay, the birth of Ishmael. All right, so I'm just going to kind of read through this, and then we'll look at it. It says, "But Sarai, Abraham's wife, had no children. So Sarai," which that was what she was called before she was called Sarah, "took her servant as an Egyptian woman named Hagar and gave her to Abram," which is what Abraham was called before God changed his name. All right, so "the Lord has kept me from having children," she says. Sarai said to Abram, "Go and sleep with my servant." What? "Perhaps I can have children through her." And Abram agreed. So Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, gave her to Abram as his wife. This happened 10 years after Abram first arrived in the land of Canaan. All right? So this is Sarah's attempt to fulfill God's promises. Okay? It's her earthly attempt to fulfill God's promises. Doesn't turn out so well. So Abram slept with Hagar. She became pregnant. When Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress, Sarai, with contempt. I'm sure she did. Then Sarai, oh, by the way, so don't tell me that indiscriminate sex does not have consequences, because it does. All right? That's just freaking lie. Okay, so here we go. So Abram, okay, where was I? Okay. Then Sarai said to Abraham, "It's all your fault. Now this servant of mine is pregnant, and she despises me, though I myself gave her the privilege of sleeping with you. The Lord will make you pay for doing this to me." Really? Abram replied, "Since she is your servant, you may deal with her as you see fit." So Sarai treated her harshly, and Hagar ran away. The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a desert spring along the road to Shur. The angel said to her, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running from my mistress," she said. Then the angel of the Lord said, "Return to your mistress and submit to her authority." The angel added, "I will give you more descendants than you can count." And the angel also said, "You are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You are to name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard about your misery." God hears about your miseries too, by the way. Just know that. "This son of yours will be a wild one, free and untamed as a donkey, wild donkey." Wow. Hi, Lisa. Good to see you. "This son of yours will be a wild one, free of untamed as a wild donkey. He will be against everyone, and everyone will be against him." Dope. "Yes, he will live at odds with the rest of his brothers." Therefore, Hagar referred to the Lord who had spoken to her as the God who sees me. I love that picture. Right? You're going through hard times in your life. The God who sees you, right? He sees what you're going through. For she said, "I have seen the one who sees me." Later, that well was named Beer Laharai, and it can still be found between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar gave Abram a son, and Abraham named him Ishmael. Abraham was 86 years old at the time. So that's the story, all right? That's this picture, all right, that we're looking at here. All right, so with that story that I just read, okay, Abraham and Sarai took God's promises as something to be manufactured by human means, all right? So they didn't consider, they considered God's promise as something to be fulfilled by human means. I mean, I wonder how many times, I think about times in my own life when I've jumped the gun with God and I haven't waited for him to fulfill something, right? I've tried to manufacture it myself. And here's the thing that you need to understand. Okay, you cannot manufacture God's blessing. You can't manufacture morality. You can't manufacture maturity in your life, right? It just doesn't work. It's like God's involved in that process. Okay, so I want to throw this question out. Have you ever been tempted to force God's hand? Maybe somebody isn't growing in their walk with God as fast as you want them to, and so you try to push it and manufacture it. You try to push the issue, and you try to make it be something, right, that you think it should be, when in reality, you're not letting God and you're not letting His Spirit do what He does best. And He changes people's lives and changes their hearts. So, I'll tell you that. That hasn't worked well in my life before. Yes, sir? Hey, good. I hope I pronounced your name right. Sorry about that. I'm glad that you're joining us this morning. Good job. So that hasn't worked out too well for me in my life. I know that when I've tried to force the issue and I've tried to force God's hand in somebody's life, that doesn't work out real well. It has to be theirs, right? It's the same thing like down here in our neighborhood, like when we want to try to help somebody. That just happened this morning. Somebody came, they're on the streets. We do, when that happens, we give them some food and stuff. We talk to them about some other programs that are out there, about that they could get involved with. And 9 times out of 10, they don't want it. No, they just don't want it. And the reality is that you don't want to try to force somebody into something like that, because they're not going to last. They might be there for a day or two, but then they're going to leave. So they have to really want it, right? And that's true with our relationship with God. Like, isn't that true in your life? Like, when changes need to be made in your life, don't you really have to want it? You have to really want it in order to experience change, right? So, that's just the truth. Hi, you know what? I'm just going to say Sam. Hi, Sam. Good to see you, buddy. I butcher names all the time. Please don't take it personally. I'm just kind of a knucklehead that way. All right, so anyway, so in that account that we just read, they tried to take it into their own hands, and it just didn't work out. All right, so now let's go to Genesis 17, verses 15 through 22. All right, so now we're going to kind of continue this. We're going to get these two accounts, okay? The one that Paul's talking about the slave woman versus the free woman, all right? So we're going to start in Genesis 17, and we're going to start in verse 15. Listen to what this says. Then God added, regarding Sarai, your wife, her name will no longer be Sarai. For now on you will call her Sarah. And I will bless her, and I will give you a son from her. Yes, I will bless her richly, and she'll become the mother of many nations. Kings will become her descendants. Then Abraham bowed down to the ground, and he laughed to himself. What? How could I become a father at the age of 100? He wondered. Besides, Sarai is 90. How could she have a baby? And Abraham said to God, yes, may Ishmael enjoy your special blessings. But God replied, Sarah, your wife, will bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac, and I will confirm my everlasting covenant with him and his descendants. By the way, we're part of that, actually. We talked about that through different parts of Galatians. All right. As for Ishmael, I will bless him also, just as you have asked. I will cause him to multiply and become a great nation. 12 princesses will be among his descendants. But my covenant is with Isaac, who will be born to you and Sarah about this time next year. That ended the conversation, and God left Abraham. Okay. All right. So, as we're looking at this, can you see the differences in the two accounts? Right? Here's the two accounts. The one account where God is fulfilling his promise, right? And as a result of God fulfilling his promise, all nations are going to be blessed because of that. But then there's this other account of Sarai, right, taking matters into their own hands and trying to fulfill the promise and actually manufacture the fulfillment of the promise. And you can still see God's grace and his mercy in this. You can still see his mercy in that. And so that should be an encouragement to you. I mean, no matter how much you have screwed up your life, God is ready and willing to embrace you with his love and his grace. All right? No matter what. All right? And so, but here's that big difference, right? Right? He says that Ishmael, God is still going to bless Ishmael with lots of descendants and all of that. But remember, Ishmael, he says that what's going to happen? He is going to be, like his whole life is going to be hard. Like people are going to be against him, like his whole life, and he's going to experience that. And as you read through that, that was very true. Okay, so why is it better? Okay, so let me just throw this question out there. Why is it better, always better, to allow God to fulfill his promises rather than us taking matters into our own hands? Why is it better to let God do that? Hi, Eunice. Good morning. Instead of us doing that, why is that better? I know in my life, you know why it's better? I've seen it happen better in my life because it matters. God's timing is everything, right? And God is so much better at it than we are. And God sees things so much better than we do, right? He knows things much better than we do. He can see things much better than we are. He's in control of things much better than we are. And he can actually see the future, all right? And so when God's going to fulfill his promises in our lives, he can do it in a way that is so much better, so much healthier, and so much empowering, so much more empowering than we can do it, all right? And so that's why, let's go back to Galatians chapter 4, all right? That's why it's so much better for us to let God do those things. Let's not push it, especially when we're dealing with somebody else's life. Where it can be bad is where we want it worse than they do. When you want something worse than somebody else, we got to be very, very careful, because that's when we can get really frustrated and angry, and we want to push things or whatever. And I'm telling you what, when people want to start to push things on me, you know what I do? Oh my gosh, I put up a wall. I'm like, don't you push that on me. Don't do that. I don't like it when people try to push stuff on me, all right? And my heart starts to get hard when it does that, right? This has to be God's process. This has to be God's process of working in and through somebody's life and softening their hearts so that they actually receive what God wants to do. All right, that's why that's so important. Okay, so let's go back to Galatians. We're in chapter 4. All right, and then we're gonna let's look at verses 24 through 27. Okay, I'm just gonna read through those again. All right, Galatians chapter 4 and verses 24 through 27. Okay, so let's read this. All right, these two women serve as an illustration of God's two covenants. Okay, the first woman, Hagar, that we just read about, represents Mount Sinai, where people received the law that enslaved them, right? And now Jerusalem is just like Mount Sinai in Arabia, because she and her children live in slavery to the law. Okay, but the other woman, Sarah, represents the heavenly Jerusalem. She is the free woman, and she is our mother. As Isaiah said, "Rejoice, O childless woman, you who have never given birth. Break into joyful shout, you who have never been in labor. For the desolate woman now has more children than the woman who lives with her husband." All right, so now Paul's writing and he's illustrating these two covenants with these two women. Okay, so what we just read, what we're looking at here, Hagar, what kind of covenant did Hagar represent? What was the covenant that she represented? That was a slavery covenant. All right, that's what Hagar represents, right? The slavery to the law. That's what she represented. Remember, because we just went through this whole thing in Galatians, right? All the way through chapters 3 and 4. Paul unpacked that. He said, following the law is like a jailer, right? A prison guard that keeps you in jail. The law is like a strict disciplinarian that whacks you on the hand every time you step out of line. The law is like a child who's waiting for his inheritance. Like he owns everything his father has, but he's not getting it until his father says, okay, now it's time for you to get the law, right? Now it's time. Okay? And so he gave all of these examples on why it is a law. It is a religion of slavery. That's what it is. All right. Versus Shoal. Hey, Shoal. Good to see you. Versus Sarah. Sarah. How did he describe Sarah? What was Sarah like? Right. So he's describing Sarah as the free woman, right? She represents the heavenly Jerusalem, all right? That it says she represents freedom, right, in our relationship with God. That's what she represents versus what Hagar represented, okay? And she represents freedom because our relationship with God is not based on fulfilling the law and being in slavery to fulfilling the law. Our relationship with God is based on the fact that God sent his own son, Jesus, to be that ultimate sacrifice for our sins. And he shed his blood, which was always required, right? For the forgiveness of sins. And then on the third day, he conquered death. He broke the power of sin in our lives. And as a result of that, now, when we embrace that truth, right, now we have this new relationship with God through Christ. And it's not based on following the law. It's based on our faith in what Jesus did for us. That's what it's based on. That's the freedom, right? That's this difference that he's talking about. That's what we need to embrace through this, all right? So, okay, so let's look at verse 28, all right? Verse 28 says, let's finish verse, let's start with verse 26, okay? But Sarah, the free woman, represents the heavenly Jerusalem, and she is our mother. That is what Isaiah meant when he prophesied. Okay, this is from the book of Isaiah. It's in chapter 54. He says this, "Rejoice, O childless woman. Break forth into loud and joyful song, even though you never gave birth to a child. For the woman who could bear no children now has more than all the other children." I mean, that is huge. It's like, if that doesn't show how it's important to let God fulfill his promises, I don't know what does, right? Because if you even think about that whole situation with Abraham and Sarah, I mean, she was in her 90s, and Abram, he was like 100 years old. So there's no way that was going to happen. Sarah never had any kids, right? And so this is the thing of where that really shows, like, when you let God fulfill his promises, that's where the true blessings happen, and the alignment starts to take place. In fact, in your own life, like when you let God start to work in your life, when you actually start to surrender your life to God and those different areas, God starts to bring alignment, and he starts to put all of these pieces together in a way that only he can do. That's where you start to experience true blessing. Okay, and then verse 28, and he says, "And you, dear brothers and sisters, are children of the promise, just like Isaac." Okay, and we talked about this, right? We talked about how those promises that God gave Abraham, we are recipients of that promise, right? We are the recipients of that, okay? That's why it says that Abraham is actually our spiritual father, right? Because his relationship with God was based on faith. It wasn't based on the covenant. It wasn't based on getting circumcised. His faith with God started even before that took place, all right? And so that's why we're a recipient of that same promise, okay? And so it's like Isaac, right? When Isaac, the promises, like, your descendants will outnumber, the sands of the sea, right? And when it says that all nations will be blessed, guess what? We were part of that. Gentiles were part of that blessing. Because when you put your faith in Christ, you're now experiencing that blessing of an eternal relationship with God. All right? We're still part of that blessing, which is awesome and amazing. Okay? All right, then verse 29 says this. It says, "And we who are born of the Holy Spirit are persecuted by those who want to keep the law, just like Isaac, the child of promise, was persecuted by Ishmael, the son of the slave wife. All right, did you get that? All right, just like that happened. You're like, what? What is that about? And then I'm going to read verse 30. We'll look at that passage. But what do the scriptures say about that? Get rid of the slave and her son, for the son of the slave woman will share the family inheritance with the, will not share the family inheritance with the free woman's son. Okay, so let's look at that passage. Okay, let's go to Genesis chapter 21. All right, I'm trying to get you guys to understand this. All right, hi, Kashif. Did I say that right? Please, I hope I didn't butcher your name. Please don't hate me. All right, let me find this. Here we go. Genesis chapter 21 is where we're going. So let's go to the Jewish scriptures. Let's look at Genesis chapter 21. Here we go. And let's look at verses 8 through 13. Okay? 8 through 13. Okay, so here we go. Okay, this is about Hagar, Ishmael, like when they're sent away. All right, so we're going to start in verse number 8. We're in Genesis chapter 21, verse 8. It says, as time went by and Isaac grew and was weaned, Abraham gave a big party to celebrate the occasion. But Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and her Egyptian servant Hagar making fun of Isaac. You know what? Okay, this whole thing as far as sibling rivalry and all that stuff, that's been going on since the beginning of time. Yeah. So he says, so she turned to Abraham. Hi, Ben. Good morning. So she turned to Abraham and demanded, get rid of that servant and her son. She's not going to share the family inheritance with my son Isaac. I won't have it. Urgh. Then this upset Abraham very much. Yeah, I'm sure it did. Because Ishmael was his son. But God told Abraham, do not be upset over the boy and your servant wife. Do not do just as Sarah says, for Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted. All right? But I will make a nation of the descendant of Hagar's son, because he is also your son. Okay, so look at a couple things that's in here, okay, with this. I love this family dynamic. Okay, this kind of stuff has been happening since the beginning, since Cain and Abel, right? The sibling rivalry and this, oh my gosh, it's always been there. Dysfunctionality started with Adam and Eve in the family, just so you know. All right, so here we go. So in this passage here, so we're seeing what's taking place. All right. Why was let me throw this out here. Like in verse 10, why was Sarah so upset with Ishmael? Like when you read verse 10, I'll just read this. So she turned to Abraham and demanded, get rid of that servant and her son. He is not going to share the family inheritance with my son Isaac. I won't have it. Why was she so upset? Because I think because she knew that she had tried to manufacture the fulfillment of God's blessing. And I think in her heart she knew that was not the right decision. And so in her heart she was saying, oh my gosh, this just cannot happen because I did this. God didn't do this. She shouldn't be blaming God for this. She did this. And because God didn't do this, she was like, he can't have that inheritance from Isaac because Isaac is the true fulfillment of God's promise, not Ishmael. All right? So that's why she was so upset at that, right? Again, it's this picture of don't put the cart before the horse. Don't try to manufacture something that God wants to but God wants to do in his own timing and in his own way. Don't try to do that because it doesn't fare well. right? It didn't fare well for this whole family dynamic. In fact, it kind of could have screwed things up. But here's the thing that's cool about this. God's mercy and his grace, do you notice that? And like how he dealt with Ishmael. He still blessed Ishmael. Right? And so can I say this to you as an encouragement? I don't know how you've screwed up your life up to this point, but can I tell you that if you decide that you're going to still surrender your life to God and you're going to make it your point, like you're going to seek his kingdom first and his righteousness first, and you're going to try the best way that you can, God is still going to bless you. You need to understand that he is a good papa who loves his kids. All right, my kids, some of my kids, they've screwed things up. They haven't been following God. They didn't do the right things. They've still messed up things in their life, and there's still this part of me. I don't know how to explain it, but there's still this part of me. I still want to love them. I want to still find ways to bless them. Imagine how God feels about you this morning. Because if you've put your faith in Christ, right, you are now adopted as a son and daughter of him, right? And you have an inheritance with him. And he loves you like a good, loving father loves his kids. And so you should be encouraged by that this morning. In fact, I want to read a couple other things that I found about some of this, okay? Part of this whole thing that Paul's writing about is this whole thing about legalism. And, you have got to reject that whole tribe, right, that's out there, as far as this legalistic tribe that's out there. Listen to what this says. Paul's closing argument climaxes with a coup d'etat, right, in verse 30. Like he's quoting Genesis 21, 10 and 12. Paul notes that Abraham, that his ultimate, Toibo. Paul notes that Abraham ultimately exiled Hagar and her child Ishmael because of the irreconcilable differences between Ishmael and Isaac. Like they were always butting heads, and it just wasn't good, and it wasn't going to be something good, right? His point is clear. Okay, Christ followers must reject legalism and refute those who teach it. Though Jews would have interpreted this passage as a mandate to reject Gentiles, Paul turns the tables, connecting the Judaizers with the slave woman and all Christ followers, Jews and Gentiles, with the free woman. All who have trusted Christ by faith are free. All right? And he gave us these two covenants, these two women, these two covenants. Okay, so the law, Hagar, is considered, like some translations will say, considered a bondwoman or a bond slave, right? And Ishmael was born according to the flesh. Okay, she is the old covenant of the law given at Mount Sinai. She represents slavery to the law. She represents Judaism, right, and legalism, as opposed to Sarah, which represents grace. Hagar represented the law. Sarah represents grace. Sarah is the free woman, right? Isaac was born according to the Spirit, right? So God fulfilled that. Sarah represents the new covenant of grace that's given by Christ. All right? Sarah represents the heavenly Jerusalem, that everyone who has put their faith in Christ, they're going to, one day, that's where they're going to end up. Sarah represents freedom in Christ. Okay? So that's these two differences that Paul is given in these verses. All right? I'm just going to look at one more thing here in Galatians. Let me find it. So, all right, let me see if I can find this here. All right, so he's just kind of finishing that up. All right, so I'm just going to read the last two verses in chapter 4. Okay, it says, "But what do the scriptures say about that?" We're back in Galatians chapter 4. "But what do the scriptures say about that? Get rid of the slave and her son, for the son of the slave woman will not share the family inheritance with the free woman's son." And then verse 31. "So, dear brothers and sisters, we are not children of the slave woman, obligated to the law. We are children of the free woman, acceptable to God because of our faith." Okay? Here's the other thing, other thing about this. Like when there's human attempts to fulfill God's law, it always brings slavery. Always. Like when we try to do that on our own, it actually produces slavery in our lives. I mean, think about how frustrated you've been, like when you've seen another person, like, I don't know, a friend, a spouse, or whatever, and you want them to be at this level spiritually and they're not. Think about how frustrated you have become, maybe how angry you've become, and then all of a sudden that creates this thing in your life, and you actually become enslaved to that. And every time you think about them, and every time it just brings it back again, and brings it back again, and brings it back again. You know what that's called? That's called slavery. All right? And so that's why it's so important that we don't go there, right? Let God do the work in somebody's life. Like, you can pray for them, you can encourage them, you can speak truth in love to them. But see, it's God's Spirit, it's His Holy Spirit that does the work. And when you resign yourself to the fact that it's the Holy Spirit that's going to do the work, I think it's going to take some of that frustration away. Okay? That's why that's just so important there. All right? So, all right. I think we did pretty good. I'm actually just finishing a 5-day fast. So I haven't really eaten any food for the last 5 days. I've drunk a lot of herbal teas, and drank some beef broth and things like that over the last 5 days. It's been really good. Cleansing too. I just felt like God wanted me to do that. So this is the last day for that, and it's been good. It's been good. I think a couple days were kind of tough, but you know what? I got through it. I think I was able to be a little more attentive to things around me, a little more attentive to God during that. And it's been good. And I've enjoyed doing the study during that time too. I think God has actually spoken in my heart through this. And I hope that God's speaking in your heart. So, all right. So next week, Monday, we're going to jump into chapter 5. Because all up to this point, Paul is so good at this. All up to this point, he's been helping us to understand what slavery to the law looks like. Now in chapter 5, he's going to change focus and give us an understanding of what it means to have freedom in Christ. What does that really look like, right? And so we're going to jump into that. So it's awesome to see you. All right. So yeah, Ben. Yep, that'd be great. Just send me a message or whatever. Message me or something, and we can work that out. All right, so it's been great to spend time with you guys this week. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day and weekend. Make sure that you go to church somewhere if you can, or at least watch something online. That would be great. Just a reminder, we are doing our live services at both our campuses. Now, our one in North Toledo, that's at 1501 North Ontario Street. That's on Saturday nights at 7 o'clock, and the doors open at like 6:30. And then our Sunday morning service is at 10:30 at our South Campus. That's at 1855 South Reynolds Road. Make sure you wear your mask so that we can show our neighbors that we love them by doing that. So it's been great. I hope you guys have a great day. And we'll see you next week.